What's up, dude?
How are you?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Damn,
Hey.
last week, yo, you hyped?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm back to get out. If that's what.
Yeah, actually, though. Like,
No.
honestly, every time on my co-ops, like, I hit the 2 months and I'm already like, yo, I'm fucking done. Can I go
Yeah,
back to
yeah, that's
school?
definitely how I feel.
You know?
I'm, I'm super glad this was only 14 instead of 16 weeks. I don't know if I could have made it
Oh,
too
was it?
long.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it could
I
be worse. It could just be like stuck at home with like
good to
no
get out.
no
Yeah,
internship,
that's
I
definitely how I
guess,
feel.
too.
Anyways, I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is much better than that. At least I get paid to sit at home.
Just
I know.
yeah, same. I'm in the same boat. So, all right. Cool. So, I know your exemplars prototype has been sitting for a while. I'm just taking a look at it now, because I have some free time. Um, do you want to just kind of share
Yeah.
your screen, so
Yeah.
you kind of walk over through it? I
Uh,
read the OTEP and the design doc and everything, so I pretty much know like what this is for. Um,
cool. So
it's
you see my screen on the left?
yes,
Or
yeah,
not on the left, in the center.
yeah.
Okay, hold up. I gotta just give me a second. I have like 40 tabs here. I have to
Yeah,
figure
no
out what.
worries.
Oh, okay, there's some visualization that I think is useful, but I have to find it. Uh, sure. So basically, I mean, from the Google side right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, exemplars look like.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, this is somewhat in development, but like you have your histogram or whatever, and then you have exemplars, which are these points,
Yeah.
which you can, I don't know, click to see the trace, right?
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
that's the Google concept. You say, okay, what is this high latency request, or I don't know, this one. And you
Yeah.
say, oh, it's because something unknown happened because I didn't trace this properly, but whatever. So that's the original goal and use of it, and then obviously it expanded to be uh, much more than that. So there is, so essentially I defined, I didn't mention this in the OTEP because I didn't have a clear thought process here,
Yep.
but I essentially separated the concept of exemplars into trace, or I call them semantic exemplars. I guess
Yeah.
trace exemplars is maybe
Yeah.
better. And then statistical exemplars, which is the cool new thing that nobody uses. And I need to, anyways, I have a Jupyter notebook here that kind of shows some stuff.
Sure.
Uh,
So you're saying you didn't have the separation of the semantic and statistical in your OTAP, right?
hey, did I cut out?
Yeah, I think so.
Fuck, how long ago?
Like a minute, maybe.
God damn it. Okay. So did you see the Jupyter notebook? Did I get
Yeah,
to screen sharing that?
yeah, yeah. If you could walk through this again.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so the top part's just setting up, obviously,
Cool.
and then I create this input that they randomly quotation marks generate this input, which has some big customers and a bunch of small customers, as you probably might see.
Oh,
And
right, yeah.
then, so this is, so I pass customer ID as a label here, but obviously customer ID is unbounded, right? So you have to drop that label. I
I
mean,
see.
so the top predict randomly quotation marks, and then so you can really create a new aggregator for every single customer ID, but because that from exemplars and they contain the drop labels, you can still make aggregations from that customer ID or estimations of the aggregation. So I can estimate, I don't know, the percentages that each customer, I don't know, in this case it's a bytes in metric. So you could say how many bytes did each customer send, and then so you can say what are my biggest customer percentages and each customer sent bytes did this customer send. And this is an estimate, but it's very, like, depending on the amount of exemplars you sample, it can be very accurate. So there's some magical formula like this thing, but if you know your standard deviation, you can basically say how many exemplars, the amount of exemplars you sample. If you know your standard deviation, you can basically say how many exemplars do I need. But anyway, so that's the how many exemplars do I need to. So with statistical exemplars, you can recreate the input distribution, including drop labels, which is the interesting part, I guess.
Right. So normally, like without this, we would only have data on like the resulting label set, right, after the keys are dropped.
Yeah, well, because you don't have this customer ID label, right?
Yeah, because they're all dropped, right?
Yeah,
So
and
like
then so you can't.
if you configure your like if you configure your views to like include exemplars, like it would maintain would it hold like all of the labels?
So the exemplars hold the labels, but the view doesn't. So exemplars, you can treat exemplars as something like completely separate from the actual values of the aggregators.
Yeah, yeah.
So it won't create won't create a bunch of new aggregators with like.
Yeah, it's just like additional residual data that's useful, right? Like, well,
yeah. So this data is taking our exported aggregations and then the view from the actual values for different customers. Yeah, so are completely separate from the actual, and create a bunch of new aggregators with like exported aggregations and useful data on top of things. And then you can also, through exemplars, you can obviously come up with you feel like, essentially, even if you don't initially record it. So here I have like percentiles of our bytes in request for 50th, 90th, and 99th percentile, which is, I don't know, somewhat interesting. But see, you can do aggregation that you of or bytes in request. See, you can do a bunch of cool stuff with this. This was mainly, seems like it's useful to Google too from the meetings I had today.
Right.
Kind of cool.
So for
But it's obviously
statistical,
not
like
used by exporter right now.
You're using some like standard like probability distribution kind of thing, right? It's like a random thing to choose which pieces of exported telemetry is actually being added into the exemplars.
Yeah, we pick. There's, I mean, it's a pretty common or simple.
Yeah, some sort of formula.
Pick a random subset from a stream of data, right?
That's fine. Yeah.
We make it completely random. Yeah, I have a very simple algorithm. Basically, pick a four. Yeah, we pick a subset from a stream of data for each bucket. So, like for each bucket, we could record n exemplars randomly, and then we also do this. There's also this thing called a sample count, and so it's how many measurements does one specific exemplar represent, which allows us to, like, you can multiply sample count by the exemplar to figure out like how many bytes this customer actually sent. And so when you have histograms, the sample count will be different depending on which exemplars come from which buckets. And so the less common buckets will have a lower sample count, which means by doing this multiplication, you can actually still recalculate what it would actually be. But then you have exemplars representing more of the distribution, which is useful.
Wait, so sample count. So for an exemplar, like its sample count, like it represents the number of things that were actually in that bucket?
And so when you have histograms, so the less common buckets will have exemplars representing more of the distribution, down of 10. If there's only one, if that was all within one bucket. So like each exemplar has been picked from 10 measurements, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so if you take all the exemplar values and multiply it by 10, you should get an estimate of what all the data together was.
Oh, I see. Got it.
And then, so it's for histogram, that number is per bucket. And so some exemplars are more weighted than others, which is, it's useful. You get data from a distribution, like from a wide variety of the histogram, but you also get it to be statistically significant. So we're basically measuring the bias here of how we pick things. And then you can use that to create an unbiased estimation.
Sure.
Like this,
sure.
for example. So it's actually right. Anyways, that's statistical, and then semantic or trace exemplars I showed you, which are the more Google useful things or most people useful things, which is provide a link between metrics and traces where, like, so for some metric you can, I don't know, say in this top bucket here, here's a link to a trace that represents when that was called.
Right.
And that's obviously very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with regards to code, most of this stuff is examples and tests, but
Yeah, most of it, like the new classes are in the example.
For some
Yeah.
metric, you can, I don't know, say in this top bucket here. Yeah, that's what I try to separate things as much as possible. So basically, I have this exemplar sampler class or exemplar manager class.
Yep.
Which will hold exemplar sampler for semantic metric. And that's obviously very useful. So I have this exemplar sampler for statistical, and then you can select based on your config which one you used, and then when to record things. So for trace exemplars, we only record exemplars when there's a trace attached. So like when a trace will be recorded, then we say, okay, sampler for statistical, and then you can select when to record. So like when a trace exemplar, or let's sample it, sorry, so it might not be recorded, but a sample bias. So we just sample from everything. And so that this manages that. So you sampled, and then just record things. So and so there's a few different, there's the random one, which uses, so yeah, Josh put a link here, which I'll add to a comment, but it's selecting a random set from a stream of data, which is,
I see.
I don't know, it's nice, it's pretty simple.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And then for like the trace exemplars, we can also have a bias for the values of the exemplars. And so here what I decided on was like min and max. So we'll record close to the min and the max of exemplars, or of the data when that exemplar also has a trace attached. So you get like you generally relevant. There's a random set from a stream of data, and then for here what I decided on was like when that exemplar also has a trace value that was recorded, like it's selecting a random set. It's pretty simple. And then the exemplars, and so or the data was some high value that was, you do care, but that's normally like the fine case versus you're looking at outliers here. Basically what this does. And then there's the bucketed one, which is for histogram, where yeah, we have a random exemplar sampler for every single bucket, and then we sample within them. And
we have a exemplar manager for each aggregator?
No, so there's one exemplar manager, or each aggregator has a exemplar manager, yes, but it's the same one. And then I have a few different samplers which I reuse.
Right, and each
the same one.
does exemplars make sense?
Aggregator has a random min-max. Sorry.
Sorry, does does exemplars make sense for all aggregators?
They are meaningful for all aggregators except for gauge.
I see.
Okay. So I don't implement them for last value.
Oh, makes sense. Right.
or at least that's what we defined in the OTEP. May or may not be true, but that's what we have defined.
Cool. Sounds
So it
good.
must be right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this makes sense. In terms of like implementation, I haven't really taken a look at it too closely, but how like invasive is this if someone doesn't want to use exemplars at all?
It's hard to. It's very hard to use them versus not to use them.
Oh, cool. Then that's good.
Does that make sense? Like on the API side, you can go to. Yeah, that's basically how I think. Like nobody's gonna use statistical exemplars for another year at least. So
Yeah. Like if you take a look at like our fucking view config and like how many lines of code we actually have to write to actually start doing the most complex case, it's actually ridiculous, eh? Like look at this, right? Look at how complex this is.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so to turn on exemplars, you have to make your view, and then in your config specify the number of exemplars you
Yeah,
want
this is not a
recorded.
this is not a testament to like how for exemplar
Uh,
specifically, but just like metrics in
I mean,
general.
does that make sense? Like on the year at least. So
Yeah, just like look at how
Richard,
ridiculously
okay, yes, please.
complex metrics is in general. You know, it's like
Yeah,
God.
so I mean, it is. I mean, it is obviously crazy. Okay, yeah, it is obviously crazy. Views. Do you really need to create a view and then register it on the meter? Why can't you do like meter dot create view or something, and then just pass these things out?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like
That's two to few lines, but yeah, it is a little crazy.
yeah, mostly because like there's just so much shit in metrics. You know, tracing is just so easy. It's like well defined, context manager, everything. So I don't know. Which is why like we're still dire need of like an SDK spec, and which is why I think it's taking so long. So
Yeah, I was talking to a PM today about exemplar thing. He basically said people won't do anything, or people like don't want to do anything at all related to like tracing or metrics. Like they'll, I don't know, you press the auto instrument button, but
yeah, exactly.
it is very hard to make them do anything.
That's
So
our customers too. They just want to like press one button and like
people
make
won't do
things.
anything. Instrument button.
Yeah, exactly. This shit is like what the fuck? What do I have to
Yeah,
config?
so
You know?
people won't do anything. Or button. Yeah, so what they had in the other OTEP for like the mini views where exporters can specify which aggregators to use or like set their own views, which is very important for us even.
Yeah, I saw the other OTEP for that.
Because it creates some issues, but if basically on the Google side, what we want to do is have is be able to set this view inside our exporter to record like the mini views, which is very important. What we want to do is have and so users don't have to go about setting them up every time. Like we make value recorders always histogram because you don't use maximum count, and then have the exemplars auto set up, and that would be very useful to us.
Oh, so
Versus
like define the.
is what we want, so users don't have to go about setting exemplars auto set up, and that would, we basically we want to be able to switch the default aggregator on
Right. Yeah.
for
Makes
like
sense.
every metric or every instrument of some type to
Yeah.
what we have plus exemplar. So basically setting a view in the general case inside the exporter, and that would be really useful.
Yeah, makes sense. But that's like just more configuration, eh? You know,
Well, it's configuration for us.
yeah, but like we're exposing this like API, right? So like
every instrument of that would be really useful. We basically every instrument of some type to what we have. Well, yeah, but at a minimum, the user doesn't have to worry about this unless they want to be advanced. Right?
nah, just like the whole like,
Yeah.
so we have views and we have like this method of like configuring like, you know, if you saw like this example implementation, like they introduced like I don't know like instrument selector or whatever, you know, just like more API concepts and like
Yeah, I mean, I'm
the
not
fuck.
necessarily a big fan of their
Yeah,
solution in Java,
yeah,
but Java is a verbose language, so I don't know.
yeah. So I don't know.
Like, can we not just set like instrument.d something else?
I don't know. Just put everything in a config file. I feel like that's what customers like.
Yeah, that could work as well.
Yeah.
But our views doesn't really support that right now, does it? Like,
No, our stuff doesn't support
our
anything
views don't
related
really
to
support
files.
that right now, does it?
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah, so I guess that's something on the roadmap.
Yeah. What's your timeline like for this?
Like this week, before we go, I have
I don't know if you like you said this before, but like you have to wrap up everything open telemetry related before you leave.
no. I'm happy to maintain my peers after I leave. It's whatever. Like this one.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, you. I
I'm
think
happy
it'll
to
also
get
be.
it in.
I think it'll also be
Yeah.
good to like at least get Aaron to look at this. You know, like get a Google
I'm happy to
person.
maintain. Yeah, Chris said he would review it, and he also told Andrew to review it, and he's definitely not going to do that. That's okay. And then yeah, I could get Aaron. He basically messaged me. He's like, "What the fuck is this? I'm not reading."
What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, fair enough.
All right, cool. Makes sense. I'll continue to take a look at it, and I'll ask you any questions that I have.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Thanks for doing this. Uh,
Yeah. Should be good.
See ya.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. See you.